point, it's my honor to introduce to you our panelists for tonight. They come from different fields of expertise to help us choose who will run the country in the next 6 years. First, we have political scientist and University of the Philippines professor, Dr. Clarita Carlos.
My area of research and expertise is on foreign policy and defense and security, so my first question will be within the rubric of these issue areas. All right. If the Quad were to become a collective security alliance, you, as our country's chief architect of our foreign policy, are you going to make the Philippines as a member of the Quad? Why and why not? Yeah, you have a problem with the concept of independent because it's like you're sitting on the fence. Is that what you mean?
No, I mean to say that we need to be able to make our own stance and be able to make our own decisions without undue influence from anybody.
I don't know that being friends with everybody is foreign policy.
We're not being friends with anybody. We can have trade with the greater power, which is our neighbor. On the other hand, we can maintain MDTs with the people in Quad.
Yeah, well, the reason why, and this is for all the candidates, I asked this question is that right now I'm sure the big powers are trying to carve their own spheres of influence. And because we've always been within the sphere of influence of the United States of America, the Quad is simply an extension of this proposed collective security arrangement.
On the other hand, we can always be sure that they will always stand for us.
Well, of course, nobody can answer that question, even if we ask Biden today, you know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Marcos, if you reject the concept of spheres of influence, does that mean you are going to scuttle the Mutual Defense Treaty when you become President of the Republic?
By no means.
Linked to the United States of America as a defense ally. Karen, do I have time for one more follow-up with Mr. Marcos?
Yes, Professor Carlos.
Yeah. Okay, if that is the stance that you have taken, Mr. Marcos, suppose you have a situation where China is trying to take us in, embrace us within this sphere of influence. How would you react as our chief architect of our foreign policy?
I can see Professor Carlos wanting to be part of the debate.
I'm sorry. I hope I'm not dominating the questions, Karen.
No, it's
Just
okay.
strike me down, if I need to shut up. No.
Yes, we've budgeted the time. If there are no reactions from the candidates to each other's answers, we are allotting the additional time to follow-up questions from our
Can I
panelists.
just do one follow-up with Mr. De Guzman?
Of course.
Okay, well, I'm interested in the concept of non-alignment because, I don't know that, it's like once upon a time we talked about that. So, sino hong mga bansa kaya ang ating, anong pangalan nila? Ang ating sasamahan? Dahil sinabi ninyo ay sasama tayo sa mga non-aligned countries because most countries have cast their lots with either the United States of America, with Russia, or with PROC.
We have a follow-up question from Professor Clarita Carlos.
Yes, there is no doubt that what is being fought over here is fish, isda. Huh? And so there is also no doubt that the food security of China cannot be at the expense of the food insecurity of the rest of us. Now, let's move away from the pseudo-militaristic perspectives that some of you have noted earlier. And how about thinking about a regional fishing agreement, which is along the lines that Mr. Abella talked about a while back? The reason why I talked about that is, well, there's a personal reason because I'm writing a book on regional fishing agreement. And since any one of you will become the President of the Republic of the Philippines, I was wondering if it is worth writing that book on a regional fishing agreement.
Why not?
But wouldn't a legal framework called a regional fishing agreement be a solution to that? Because right now, what China is doing is unilaterally declaring a fishing holiday. Like, wow, bawal mangisda ngayon ha, sa susunod na buwan ka mangisda ha. So she's setting all the rules for this contested South China Sea. So if you were the chief architect of our foreign policy, wouldn't you want a regional fishing agreement where every country washed by the East China and the contested South China Sea are participants or members? And if I may add, this is not the rain on the parade of Mr. Abella and Mr. Gonzalez. I don't think we should lean on ASEAN. The countries which are fed by the Mekong River, I'm sure they will cotton on to China because the Mekong rises from China. Ibig mo sabihin, wala kang tubig sa agriculture mo sa iyong tao, and we're talking about Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam, Thailand, Myanmar. Diba? So, yeah, to repeat, I'm not raining on your parade, but I doubt very much that we should lead on ASEAN. May I follow with a remark? But remember, we have in fact committed to the ASEAN political security community, which is part of the troika of economic community and the social-cultural community. So that means eventually in the ASEAN you will really have to deal with different doctrines of ASEAN 10. So, by the way, Russia is only first. I understand that China also wants to train with us. Vietnam wants to train with us, and Japan. I'm sure all these countries will have different doctrines. So, should we not open ourselves up to this eventuality rather than be hostage to American doctrine?
Professor Carlos, I can see you looking at me. Is there any follow-up question?
Well, gusto kong tanongin si Calyodi kung hinila ng Amerika ang paa natin dahil in-invoke niya ang Mutual Defense Treaty dahil hindi mo pa siya in-scuttle. Ano magiging reaction mo bilang Commander-in-Chief? Karen, is it in order for me to ask my colleague here to elaborate on that question? Because I'm a stupid person, so I don't know the details of this RA that he talked about.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
Sorry.
Because when I investigated this and wrote a book on political parties and elections, Rolex, I noted that some people, because they don't want a money trail, a paper trail rather, will put the money in bayongs, you know, and just give it to you, Rolex. Ito yung ano. So, dyan ba sa RA na sinasabi mo, yung ganyang mga pagbibigay ng salapi, hindi matitrace, di ba?
Well, bilang po yan sa umpisa ng campaign period, which started last February 8.
Wow, but
Hindi bilang.
yeah, but you know, only a stupid person will report na nakakuha ako ng milyon dyan sa bayong, di ba? That's what I'm saying.
Well, I think that's why there's a law. They're requiring
Karen, hindi ko inaapi to kasi estudyante ko to eh.
Professor po Kabukuhan na.
Well, susog lang dun sa tinuran ni Bert Gonzales at saka ni Leody de Guzman, no? Actually, yung gusto niyong proposal that the government will pay for your radio, TV time, and you know, your tarpaulins, etc. That can only happen when you shift our parliamentary system, where the political party becomes the pivot of our political life. Outside of that, talagang kailangan magkalkal ka ng sarili mong salapi. And you know the implication when you do that, diba? So let's shift to a parliamentary system. Unfortunately, not one of my colleagues here, including myself, have asked about that because we were limited to 2 questions. So what can we do? Yeah, you're absolutely correct. You know, if any candidate doesn't have any political party behind him or her, whatever promises you make, that's just saliva. I don't know, because it's the political party which will make things happen. Diba?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely.
Well, I'm an educator, and I have been teaching for the past 55 years. You know, I started teaching when I was 20, so I'm 75 now. So education is really so pivotal to my professional life. The empirical evidence suggests to us that effective learning happens on the basis of 2 factors. First, the mastery of the subject matter by the teacher, and 2, a fairly high level of motivation by the student, and they are interacting. Therefore, if you want to do any policy changes, that means you pay attention and you invest on the teacher. Do not invest on air-conditioned rooms, you know, classrooms, etc. Because these things can happen even under the papaya tree. But if the teacher is bobo, no learning happens. So that means if you have limited number of pesos, put it on the training of teachers. Okay, the other part, and I was triggered by the question of Dante here, is yes, a legislation which is going through the legislative mill in regard to empowering the CHED. Why in heaven's name did we divide our education system into a DepEd, K-12, you know, a CHED, and kung bobo ka, diyan ka na lang sa Boctec, ha? No? I remember, you know, ang uncle ko sabi niya doon sa isang bobo kong pinsan, ay nako kasi, mahina naman ulo mo, mag-teacher ka na lang kaya o mag-military. Oh my God! Yung bobo yung gagawing teacher, no? So, you know, education is so pivotal to the life of our nation. So, you as chief executives, I would plead that you pay attention to empirical evidence. The critical variable for effective learning to happen is to invest on the teacher. Thank you.
Yes.
Is there a question that you want them to address? Or
Well, Karen, I'm really leading to what Dante said. You need an EDCOM too. Kasi yung EDCOM 1 ang nagganyan yan nag-divide yan sa 3. Why they divided that? I don't know. You know, there's something so brainless about these divisions.
Subscribe to SMNI News Channel and turn on notification button for more news.